Okay, I am Pat Johnson. I am also one of the commissioners, and I just want to say that was a wonderful, wonderful presentation, Mr. Butler. I really enjoyed that. Now we're going to have a speaker of Phillip Herndon. Phillip was born July the 3rd, 1951, to James Franklin Herndon and Georgia May Bird Herndon. Herndon was raised on the South Park Street in the shadows of Little Rock Central High School. Herndon was one of the first black students to help to integrate West Side Junior High School and was the first black to become chosen to serve as editor of the school's newspaper, the Bearcats. Upon entering Little Rock Central High School in the 10th grade, he was a member of the Honor Society, the Key Club, the Latin Club, the Principals Advisory Board, and state champion in the 440-yard dash in track, and a member of the football team. In 1968, which was his junior year, he achieved national notoriety by delivering the greatest single season performance of all time in Arkansas by entering the title of national champion in both the high and lower hurdles and being ranked in the top 10 nationally in the 3 relay team that he participated in. Now, he was inducted in 1969 to the inaugural class of the Little Rock Central High School Hall of Fame. Herndon was chosen to represent Little Rock Central High School at the American Legion Boys State, where he became the first black to be elected lieutenant governor, where he presided for one day as honorary lieutenant governor of Arkansas. Herndon received a full scholarship to Villanova University in Philadelphia, where he won national champions in track in his freshman year. His sophomore year, he earned a slot on the United States Olympic team, but did not compete in March games due to injury. Herndon became an investment banker and was recruited by Adam, I cannot pronounce that name, to be assistant manager of Blender Robinson and Company in the world's largest penny stock firm. In 2022, Herndon was inducted into the Arkansas Track and Field Hall of Fame and honored as having the greatest single season performance of all time in Arkansas track and field. Herndon is currently writing a book to detail his life history. And if any of you have the opportunity to go back and look at some of Herndon's memorabilia and his awards, please do so. It's very interesting. So let's give Phillip Herndon a warm welcome this morning.
Wow. All glory be to God. Boy, I'm higher than the cloud this morning. And if you listen really carefully, you can hear my heart beating. Every morning I practice what I call my happiness ritual. I sit on the side of my bed and give myself two choices. to be very happy today or to be extremely happy today. No option. I must say I'm very happy this morning to be here, and despite the fact that I set out to be happy today, some unusual things happened on my way over here. I went to put my shirt on, the buttons fell off. Went to put my shoes on and the laces broke. On my way out the door, I grabbed my briefcase and the handle fell off. Needless to say, my happiness routine was direly challenged. But on the way out the door, all of a sudden, and I've been scared to go to the bathroom all day. So needless to say, my happiness routine has been direly challenged. And at that moment, I got an unusual text, and I want to read it to you. It says, "Good morning, this is God. I'll be handling all your problems today, and I don't need your help. So have a miraculous day." Y'all didn't notice, but I saw Macy checking his phone just then. And allow me to convey a note of incredible gratitude to the Arkansas Black History Commission and the Arkansas Archives for extending this tremendous honor and noteworthy distinction on me. I'm thrilled and honored for this opportunity to share how my story and history intersected. Over 70 years, I've witnessed and lived through some of the most defining moments in U.S. history. My journey has included incredible highs and devastating lows. I stand here today hopefully having been a positive difference maker and example, having set the bar to a lofty standard for future generations of young Arkansans and beyond. I view my life as not just a collection of personal achievements, but a sincere effort to lead by example, to be the best person that I could be because I believed that I could. I want to thank the Arkansas Black History Commission and the Arkansas Archives for offering me this wonderful opportunity, because I want to share with you. I've never told this story before in 7 decades. But the dictionary tells us that precursors are forerunners, persons that go before and prepare for the coming of others. And what I wanted to do this morning, rather than make a formal presentation, I wanted to have a heartfelt conversation with you. Because as the good doctor, as she was talking about Macy and how she didn't know where West Side High School was. Well, West Side Junior High is right down the street. It was when Central High School, everybody knows the story of the Little Rock Nine. But rarely do people understand, unless you lived here in Little Rock and went through it. West Side Junior High School was really a ferocious place to be if you were black back in those days. And I want to kind of go back to my childhood, because this is where, we're not here I don't want to feel like I'm being honored. I want to feel that we can shine a light on this young man over here, because I'll let you be the judge of how he did. My mother and father were the best, most warm and wonderful people that I've ever known. My father, James Franklin Herndon, he served honorably in the military, in the Army, in World War II. My mother also served in World War II, but she left Little Rock at the age of 18 and migrated to Washington, D.C., where she joined the typing pool for the military, because this is pre-computer and pre-internet and all of that. But my mother earned the distinction of being able to type 120 words a minute with no errors. She was amazing. My father worked after leaving the military, he came back to Little Rock, married my mom, and built a beautiful yellow brick house over on Park Street. And I grew up in the shadows of Little Rock Central High School, right down the street. Little did I know that all these years later, our histories would be so intermingled. I can really remember vividly being out in my yard as a little boy. And we were close enough to Central where when they had at Quigley Stadium, there were football games or other activities, you could hear the sound of the cheering and all of the exuberance that was going on up at the stadium. And little did I know that years later, they'd be cheering for me. What I want to do, I had written and labored over a long, drawn-out presentation, and since God told me this morning that He got my back, I don't know if you've ever seen the great pit of fire that people build of the coals and all of that, and you see people that build up their courage and they walk those coals. Has anybody in the audience ever seen that? It comes from, I think it was in Hawaii. They did it as a religious ritual. But human beings, people would step out on this bed of coals and they take that leap of faith and walk those coals. So I'm going to walk some coals for y'all this morning. And I'm terribly sorry that my sinuses are whipping me, but I'm going to continue as best I can. People know that the Little Rock Nine, everybody knows about the Little Rock Nine, but not a lot of people know that very few of them graduated physically from Central High School. Very few. But my journey started it was a sweltering summer day, July 3rd, 1951, where I was born in Little Rock. And I returned home to this wonderful home that Dad had built. My father had worked for the railroad after leaving the military. And I thought he had the best job in the world because he had a lifetime pass where the family could travel for free. So coming up, every year we had several vacations. He would take us to St. Louis to watch the Cardinals play, or he would take us to not New York, but to Detroit to visit relatives, or Omaha, or Denver. And I was so proud of my dad. He had the starched bib jacket and the black pants and the shine shoes. Dad was a Pullman porter. And it was many years that later that I found out that he was basically a glorified waiter, which was great because back in those days, 1951 and before, air travel was in its infancy. And the trains, especially, I don't know if how many of you have ever been to the Union Station over here on Victory, but it used to be a hub of activity. It was a tremendously commercialized area because there was a lot of traffic and people coming and going. And I remember so vividly as a child getting on that train, and wasn't a lot of blacks traveling back then, but there were a lot of, wealthy and otherwise whites and all, that traveled. It was a major mode of travel. Little did I know that Dad had suffered so many indignities of he did everything from carrying lunch trays or shining shoes, boy do this or boy do that, and he, with a smile, he went on and did what he had to do to take care of his family. He did a fantastic job, and I want to give a shout out to my dad. But my journey is, I want to break it into a portion where you can basically understand who this man is that you're looking at. And I started at Gibbs Elementary School, which is right down on 16th and Cross Street. It's right down from Central High School. And I remember vividly in the 4th grade, I had a wonderful teacher. All my teachers were wonderful, because I know I don't want to slight any teachers today, but back in the day, they were serious about getting you educated, especially in the black schools. And one of my favorite teachers of all time, and really somebody who's probably the reason I'm here, was a lady by the name of Mrs. Bussey. Her husband, Charles Bussey, was, they called him the mayor of, white folks said Niggertown, but he was the mayor of Little Rock, Black Little Rock, because he was the first black deputy sheriff, first black man that they allowed to carry a gun around here legally. And he was assigned to handle the problem, take care of y'all's folks over there. But Mrs. Bussey was my 4th grade teacher. And I remember her coming to me, and she says, "Phil, I got something for you. We're going to have a play coming up, and I want you to read this poem." And I said, "Sure, Miss Bussey, that's great." She handed me the copy of James Weldon Johnson's The Creation. And I looked at this, and that's 862 words. Now, you got to remember, I'm 4th grade. I said, "Miss Bussey, I can't do that. I don't believe I can do that." She said, "That's okay, son." She leaned over and put her arm around me. And she said, "Son, there's 2 kind of people in this world. Those that believe they can, and those that believe they can't. And they're both right." So with that, I went and studied and did what I had to do, and sure enough, come play date in front of all the school, I stood out on the stage, much like today, and played God. The creation story, I did it verbatim in the 4th grade. Of course, I got straight A's for that. But she, in her wisdom, armed me with something that has done well for me all these years. But another experience that was at Gibbs Elementary School also shaped my life tremendously. Because as a reward for my service on the play, I was chosen to be on the flag staff, or the flag patrol, I think that's what it was called. And we were responsible for, I say we, me and one other guy. We were responsible for raising the flag in the morning and lowering it in the afternoon. That was the biggest deal, because we weren't in class and we could walk down the hall and play. But the one thing that I remember most about my assignment was that during this time, you got to remember, this was, I entered the Little Rock Public School System in 1957. And by the time I was in the 4th grade, Little Rock was a hotbed, really was, a hotbed of tension and segregation. And it was not a good place to be around here if you were black. I remember going out to raise the flag, and the big yellow school buses would come down the street, down 16th Street, en route to Central. They would pass down, Central was on 16th and Park. And the buses with the, full of the white youngsters on their way to school would come by and harass me. "You little black this, you that." And it was really traumatic. It was more than traumatic, it was terrible. And I didn't know at that time exactly what I was in store for. Later on in the sixth grade, Mrs. Hamilton, who was our principal at the time, called me and my parents in, and she said, we were having trouble getting West Side Junior High School integrated because nobody wants to go. And I volunteered to go. But only after she told me, she said, we're seeking our best and brightest because the whites in the community have hard hearts and closed minds, a lot of them. And we want you, because I had pretty good grades at the time. She said, we would like for you to go and represent our community at Westside Junior High School. And reluctantly, I said yes. And prior to me going over, former Judge Joyce Elise Williams Warren was one of the first blacks. Their class went for 2 years. My class would have been the first class to go through for all 3 years. West Side, like I said, not many people really know the story of West Side because Central has overshadowed that, and gotten so much attention. But very, very, very few of us went. And many, many days we had to fight to get out of the door to go home because we were confronted by crowds of angry young kids who decided that they knew better than the school district and said we didn't belong there. And one of my best friends at the time was a brother by the name of Brent Jennings. And many of you know who Brent is. He's a world-famous actor, over 50 movies to his credit. Brent's a short guy. I always tell him, man, if you had a couple of more inches taller, you would have been Denzel. But Brent and I used to have to, I remember 7th grade, we lived on 22nd, I lived on Park Street, he lived on Marshall. So we had to walk together to get home. And we would have to sometimes be back to back fighting to get out of the door to go home. And it was tremendously traumatic, to say the least. Recently, I was introduced to an author by the name of Dr. Joy McGray. And she came up with a concept called post-traumatic slavery disease, PTSD, clinical psychologist. She found that primarily the people coming back from military, from Vietnam and other places around the world, were being diagnosed with this PTSD because they found out clinically you don't even have to be present at the trauma for it to affect you for your life. And she found, and she believed, that our entire country suffers from post-traumatic slavery disease because we've never, as black people, had been addressed the trauma. And as whites, they've never accepted the responsibility of what their forefathers and mothers did. And there's a state of tremendous unrest because we're all walking around with this disease that we don't know we got, and it's untreated. And this morning, I was really reluctant when Tatiana offered me this position. I was really reluctant to take this because as you can tell, I'm not much of a public speaker. But I felt it necessary, and I thought this is my therapy, and you guys are my therapists. And I appreciate y'all letting me tell this little story. When I went to Central High School, it was still pretty tumultuous, if you will. And I entered Central High School in 1966. And I remember the track coach, a fellow by the name of Horton, Clyde Horton. He looked at me and he sized me up. And he looked at my legs and he said, "Son, you're gonna run the hurdles." Well, I said, "Okay." So I went out for track, and his vision has served me well. But one thing, let me back up a little bit. I left out something tremendous, I think, about my stay at Westside Junior High. With all the turmoil and with all the fighting, with all the unrest, I was picked to be the editor of the Westside High School Junior High newspaper. And I chose a young lady by the name of Barbara Green to be one of my editors, and I was the editor, the sports editor, and the business manager for Westside Junior High School's newspaper, the voice of Westside Junior High. When I entered Central, again, it was still not a very friendly place to be. But what I did, I remember also Miss Bussey and Miss Hamilton imploring me to participate in the process. At Westside, I was in the Beta Club, the Key Club, the Honor Society, and did my best to keep my head down and stay busy. I want to read a little something to you here. This is Arkansas Track and Field Hall of Fame plaque that I received in my induction. It says, "In recognition of outstanding athletic achievements in the sport of track and field, Little Rock Central High School, Phillip George Herndon, Villanova University, earned the distinction of having the greatest single-season performance in Arkansas track and field history at any level in 1968, in any level." Prior to my induction, we had to research this because we contacted Sports Illustrated magazine and Track and Field News, which are the authorities on track and field in America. And the editors of both publications said not only had nobody, to their knowledge, in Arkansas ever done this, but nobody in the country had ever done it. And because so much time has passed, I remember in my induction ceremony, I was asked, "Well, Phil, it's been it's been 50 years. Does this diminish this honor for you at all?" And I said, "Heck no. It's as sweet as, like Grandma used to say, sweeter than candy yams." Because my distinctions had stood for over 50 years unchallenged. So, having said that, I'm not going to take a lot of time up here, but I came to talk about the Track and Field Hall of Fame and this particular honor. But 1968 was when I did my damage, if you will. And I have to set the stage. If you don't remember, 1968 was one of the most tumultuous years in the history of this country. The killing of Dr. Martin Luther King, the assassination of Bobby Kennedy, Bull Connors, and those people down in Mississippi. 1968 was a tough time. And in the midst of all this turmoil that was going on in our country, I found a way to do what I did. And for many of y'all that might not know much about track and field, I think it's one of the toughest sports that's out there. Because most sports, if you play basketball, you're there for your season. The season starts and you run your competitions and it's over. But track and field is unique in that there's an indoor season which starts usually before class starts. And then there's an outdoor season, which if you're any good, it lasts much long after school's out. And it's, you're an athlete for the whole year. I mean, it's a grueling, grueling challenge. When I came out of Little Rock Central High School, I received over 200 scholarship offers. 16 of those offers were academic. Harvard, Princeton, Yale, Stanford, West Point, Annapolis, the Military Naval Academy, like that. Because not only did I have the prowess in athletics, but I was a pretty good student. So I have to look back to Miss Hamilton and Miss Bussey and thank them for steering me in the direction that they did. I could stand up here and bore y'all with a lot of specifics of times and numbers and this and that. If you look in the back there, there's a few of the achievements, if you will, that Phil Herndon accomplished. And one of my favorites, if you will, there's a trophy back there from the U.S. Olympic Invitational Track and Field Meet from Madison Square Garden in New York, 1970, where I was a student at Villanova University, and this was a big deal. I mean, 34,000 people in Madison Square Garden. I'm a country boy, man. That was a lot. That was a lot. And I remember vividly, we were in line or in position to win the meet, but there was one last event. It was a mile relay. And we had a bad exchange on our batons on our, I think, the second leg, so we were really far, like 20, 30 yards behind when I got the baton. And I can't remember anything but seeing that guy's butt going around that corner. And I knew I had to catch him. And darn if those 34,000 people in Madison Square Garden didn't call the hogs, because they stood up and cheered as they could see me catching this guy and passing. And that trophy was awarded to me for the fast time in that relay and us winning that event. That was in that same meet. I ran the hurdle event. One of my teammates at Villanova, Irv Hall, had come in second in Mexico City in the '68 Olympics. Willie Davenport had come in first in Mexico City in the Olympics. And these guys I ran against every trip of the train, as they say. Top, best in the world. I didn't beat either one of them, but I did run fast enough to be qualified to be a member of the U.S. Olympic team. On that table back there, there's also that flag. It's green, red, and black. And that flag, there was a fellow from, the Kenyan Olympic, or the Kenyan national team, the team that represented the nation of Kenya, participated in that track meet. And there was a brother by the name of Kipchoge Kano, who was one of my heroes, because in 1968, he had whooped this fellow named Jim Ryan, the big star from America. And I'm really patriotic, but I learned, I used to cheer for Tarzan and the Lone Ranger and all, back in the day. I didn't, it was later in life that I realized, hey, they got you really screwed up, man. You don't know who you're cheering for. But I remember vividly, Kipchoge Kano beat the field. It was a Wanamaker mile, and he won. And you know how the guys would put the flag, drape the flag around you and you do the victory lap? Well, darn if he didn't pass by me and stop. And he said, man, I love that warm-up you got on. Had the big Villanova V on it and a Wildcat on the back. I said, brother, I love that flag. And that's that flag back there. You know, you're looking at history, y'all. I mean, seriously, that kid over there, that picture was part of an award that I received, the Charles T. Meyer Foundation Award. That's a pen and ink drawing by Mr. George Fisher, who was a cartoonist and world famous artist who was from Arkansas, and he did a lot of the cartoons and caricatures of the Clintons and the Faubuses and so forth and so on. And he did that personally. So when I tell you, sometimes I look back and it just shocks me. I have to sit down that I have participated where I have. I was the first black person to be elected to a county office in the state of Arkansas as the Pulaski County Surveyor when I was 21 years old. Again, as an Arkansan, I swell with pride. I've always loved Arkansas, but I've been oblivious to a lot of the things that other people around the country called us all kind of stuff, you know, coming from that place. Because not only was Little Rock the focus for the country at the time when Central was integrated, colonialism and apartheid and many other forms of suppression were rampant all over the world. In this picture right here, I want to dedicate today's ceremony to these brothers right here, Tommy Smith and John Carlos. They won the 200 meters in Mexico City, and they were brave enough to make a statement to the world with their fists raised, and they got death threats and got their medals taken away from them and all kind of other stuff. But they knew that during those times it was time for somebody to stand up. And they were soldiers in the Army, and they took their stand. And I knew both of these guys. We competed at virtually every meet that I was at in college. These guys were on the field. So today, in the situation that we find ourselves in not only in Little Rock, but in this nation, I'm here as a reminder. One of my favorite artists is this Rastafarian brother. He calls himself the Burning Spear, Winston Rodney. And the song is it's called Slavery Days. He said, do you remember the days of slavery? Do you remember the days of slavery? Do you remember the days of slavery when they beat us and the work was so hard? Power to the people.